A very good morning to all. Myself, Dr. Rohini, Assistant Professor, Department of Computer Science, Karnataka State Kamadevi Women's University, Vijaypura. Thank you all for joining 6 days online workshop on robotics with Arduino. The workshop is hosted by the Department of Computer Science with the support of CURE, that is Consolidation of University Research for Innovation and Excellence in Women's Universities, initiative of Department of Science and Technology DST, Government of India. I take this opportunity to welcome one and all who are the part of this inaugural ceremony and workshop. On behalf of the department and organizing team, I welcome Chief Patron of the event, Honorable Vice Chancellor Madam Professor B.K. Tulsimala, who is with us amid her busiest schedule. On behalf of the organizers and participants, I welcome you, ma'am. I welcome patrons of the event, respected Registrar Ma'am, Professor R. Sunandama, Registrar Evaluation Sir, Professor P.G. Thursad, and Finance Officer Madam Professor Vijaya Kori Shetty. I wholeheartedly welcome today's keynote speaker of the workshop, who is author, writer, and tech entrepreneur Pravitran Rajan. On behalf of the Department of Computer Science and University, I welcome you, sir. I welcome invited corporate trainers, Finland Labs New Delhi, Umang Kejriwal, Jeetu Gupta, Shivendra Kumar, Suraj Kumar, who will be with us virtually imparting valuable knowledge with us. Welcome, sir. Warm welcome to all the graduates, postgraduate students, research scholars, and faculty members of different departments from various universities and institutions of different states of India for joining online. Welcome you. We are happy to announce that we have received 172 registrations for this workshop. Participants are from different states of India, which include Karnataka, Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, Madhya Pradesh, Andhra Pradesh, Rajasthan, and Delhi. The online workshop on robotics with Arduino is for anyone who is interested in learning more about the Arduino and robotics. The workshop covers from the fundamentals of robotics, motors, sensors, programming the robots using microcontrollers, and many hands-on projects. Now, I request Coordinator DST Curie AI and Chairperson Department of Computer Science Professor Aziz Makandar to present introductory remarks. Over to you, sir. I request Dean Faculty of Science and Technology Professor Gigi Rajput to introduce the Faculty of Science and Department of Computer Science. Over to you, sir.
Under Honorable Vice Chancellor has established a state-of-art laboratory facilities, so which will help the students to gain hands-on experience in all the courses they are going to study during the different programs offered by the department. So, lastly, so I congratulate the entire team for conducting the robotic on Arduino workshop, and so again tell that this workshop is going to benefit not only the participants, the faculty of our departments also, and in future we can come across such a workshop, so gaining a confidence in developing real life projects so related to robotics. I thank one and all for giving me an opportunity. Thank you. Over to Rohini madam.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Now I request Honorable Vice Chancellor Madam of Karnataka State Akkamade Women's University Vijaypura, Professor B.K. Tulsimala ma'am, for presidential address. Ma'am, over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Rohini. Very good morning to you all. Dear participants, deans of different faculties, chairpersons, professors, and colleagues. It is really a proud moment for our university to organize a series of webinars, seminars, workshops, and international conferences under the Curie Artificial Intelligence project of Department of Science and Technology, Government of India. The Curie Artificial Intelligence project is to explore the applications of artificial intelligence technology in different domains. This will naturally automate many of the day-to-day tasks. It is really appreciating that the Department of Computer Science is really working hard in this direction. In addition to this, other departments of science, social science, and education and management are also working in this direction to explore the application of artificial intelligence. I am sure that Karnataka State Akka Mahadevi Women's University, Vijayapura, will have its digital impact on the field of artificial intelligence and its never-ending applications. According to the International Federation of Robotics, nearly 23.2 million service robots are being used now. Robotics continue to emerge as a large and influential market. It is a known fact that many industries and services are utilizing robotics to promote efficiency, productivity, and also to ensure conveniences to both businesses and consumers. The top 5 industries which are using robotics include healthcare, agriculture, food preparation, manufacturing, and defense. In healthcare, for patients who have suffered strokes or spinal cord injuries or who are paralyzed, robotic devices have the ability to assist and guide them during their rehabilitation. In addition to this, robotic lifting machines can help the assistants to lift patients who are elderly or immobile. In agricultural sector, farmers are already using tractors and harvesters that are self-guided by GPS. Automated and intelligent robots invented by Mule Robotics are able to prepare and cook hundreds of meals in a home kitchen. This robotic chef is controlled via a smartphone. Further, in manufacturing sector, many robots collaborate with workers to perform repetitive, monotonous tasks under the workers' guidance and control. And one highly visible area involves unmanned drones. These machines can be used for surveillance and support operations in the battlefield. Drones are revolutionizing disaster response since they can access hazardous areas with greater speed and precision. So with this, it is very clear that robotic devices have become the buzzword of our times, and they have established their presence in several commercial industries and also services sector. So from this point of view, this online workshop on robotics with Arduino, organized by the Department of Studies in Computer Science, is one step towards the goal of achieving excellence in artificial intelligence and robotics. The 6-day online workshop is being conducted by industry trainers of Finland Lab, New Delhi, and is expected to be a great success. I hope the distinguished keynote speaker, Pavitran Rajan, will throw light on the topic artificial intelligence and robotics. On this occasion, I would like to congratulate Professor G.G. Rajput, Dean of Science and Technology, Professor Ajij Makandar, Chairperson, Department of Computer Science, Professor Ramesh K., and other faculties of the Department of Computer Science for organizing this event. And I wish that it will expand our understanding of the artificial intelligence and its applications. I wish all the very success to this seminar, and I thank the organizers for this opportunity. Have a good day. Thank you. Over to you, Dr. Rohini.
Yeah, ma'am. Thank you so much for your encouraging words. Now I take this opportunity to propose vote of thanks on the occasion of inaugural ceremony of 6 days online workshop on robotics with Arduino. The workshop is hosted by the Department of the Computer Science, Karnataka State, Akka Mahadevi Women's University, Vijaypura, under Curie AI initiative of Department of Science and Technology, Government of India. Firstly, I would like to thank Professor Aziz Makandar, Coordinator, DST Curie AI, and Chairperson, Department of the Computer Science, for introductory remarks. Thank you, sir. I thank Professor Gigi Rajput, Dean, Faculty of Science and Technology, for introducing to the Faculty of the Science and Department of the Computer Science. Thank you, sir. I thank Professor Ramesh K. and Dr. Sheetal Rani Kale, Assistant Professor, Department of Computer Science, for giving valuable suggestions in organizing this workshop. I express my deep sense of gratitude to the keynote speaker of the workshop, Pavitran Rajan, who happily accepted the invitation and became the part of the event. Thank you, sir. I thank the corporate trainers of Finland Labs who are resource person of the workshop, Umang Kejriwal, Jeetu Gupta, Shivendra Kumar, Suraj Kumar, for managing the time schedule and accepting the invitation. Thank you, sirs. I wholeheartedly thank Honorable Vice Chancellor Madam, Karnataka State Akka Mahadevi Women's University, Vijaypura, Professor D.K. Tulsimala Ma'am, for presidential address. Thank you, Madam, for encouragement and being with us. Thank you. I thank ICT Cell, Karnataka State Akka Mahadevi Women's University, Vijaypura, for technical support, non-teaching staff of the Computer Science Department, Satish, Vinod, Bharti, and Sunanda, for arrangements of class for hands-on sessions. Last but not least, I thank all the virtual participants for being enthusiastic participants. Thank you, one and all. Now, without any further delay, we will turn the time over to keynote address of the workshop. If participants have any questions during the presentation, please type them in the chat box of Google Meet. We will bring them at the end of the presentation. Now, I would like to introduce the today's keynote speaker, Pavitran Rajan. Pavitran Rajan is an alumnus of National Defense Academy. While serving in the Army, he did pioneering work in cyber intelligence and information warfare. After taking voluntary retirement in 2013, he served as an advisor to the Ministry of Home Affairs, Government of India. Pavitran Rajan is an adjunct faculty at Cybersecurity Research Center, Punjab Engineering College, Chandigarh, and on the board of advisors of Cyber Peace Foundation. He is considered a top leader in information warfare and strategic thinking of information age in India, and is associated with numerous think tanks. He is an author of the recently published book, Engaging China, Indian Interest in the Information Age. Pavitran Rajan regularly writes and advises various central and state government agencies, including the armed forces. Pavitran Rajan also serves on the board of 2 private limited companies. He is an avid trekker and collects old wooden furniture. So this was about today's keynote speaker. Now over to you, sir, for keynote address.
Good morning. Am I audible? Am I audible? I have unmuted. I am?
Yeah, sure, sir. We can hear you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for that very kind introduction to the Honorable Vice Chancellor, members of the faculty, and students. I wish I could see you all. It's actually quite disappointing looking at a very blank screen when you can't see the people. But I'm indeed, aware of the single honor which you people do by inviting me to be a keynote speaker. To be honest, when Dr. Rohini asked me to be a keynote speaker, I didn't realize she was also enticing me into giving a lecture for 1 hour. That's what she said. But I had already agreed. And I had very limited knowledge of, I still have very limited knowledge of robotics. So my aim would not be to teach you robotics in my presentation, but to give you an overview of what it means as a society and as a nation when we get into this exciting era of robotics. Robotics, in many ways, is a multidisciplinary field, as has already been brought out. You have electronics, you have data, you have artificial intelligence, you have motors, a lot of things going to creating a robot. So with that as a small backdrop, let me now jump in straight away to the presentation so that I give you an oversight and maybe pique your interest on what would this nation expect from you when you get into this exciting field of robots. Okay, my entire screen, so allow 1 second. Can you see my screen? Because I can't see you anymore. Dr. Rohini, can you people see my screen?
Yes, sir, we can see. Yeah, it is
Okay,
visible.
great.
You can carry on.
So when I got for this, the university, Women's University of Akka Mahadevi, there you are, India's strategic interest in robotics. So robos is as old as mankind. I've just shown you certain puppets. A man, since the time when he has evolved in the last 200,000 years, would always, we have not changed much. And we would always like to play God. And there you have puppets. And Togalu Gobayata, I don't know how many of you have heard of this. I had never heard of Tolpava Kutu till the time I researched on this particular subject. But yes, these are all arts which are which exist in India for the last hundreds of years. Now, from puppets, while getting into the subject of robotics, I thought I will address this very vast field of robotics because I got lost in it by telling you the generations of robots, so that you also have an understanding into which direction would we finally go towards when you approach this field. You had the first generation of rule-based robots. Second generation was machine learning. The third generation is deep learning, and the fourth generation is adaptive learning. Okay, so there are people who have said there is going to be a fifth generation. There are even people who have said there is a sixth generation, but I've not gone into that. That's in the realm of the future. Excuse me. So the first generation, just to give you a very, a fast oversight, Ultima. Okay, a robot which I'm sure you would have all heard, studied about. In the car manufacturing industry. I will not dwell on it much because you people are the experts on robots and you will know much more about Ultima than I ever will. But then this is second generation. I've got one at home. It helps in cleaning. It has some sensors. It has some intelligence because if it gets stuck, it knows where to turn. But I keep seeing that it keeps going around in circles if it doesn't have enough, furniture to stop it. So that is the second generation. And there, the third generation. Law enforcement operations other than war. You will slowly realize that human advances in technology has always originated with war. Why is that so? Why should humans always throw your best and biggest money, best talent and the biggest money into war? Because the structures of what you see today exists on very hard military power. If there is no nation, for a nation to exist, you need a military to defend it. You need a constitution. You need a military to defend that constitution against all enemies, external as well as internal. And if you do not have that military, all your rights, your fundamental rights, etc., do not exist. Not many people understand this truth, especially in India. Many other nations are much more aware of this fundamental truth, that unless there is a class of people who willingly forego their fundamental rights to serve the nation in the military, the rest of them will not have any fundamental rights. So that is the reason mankind always tries to throw his best talent and the largest amount of money into ensuring that they are ahead in war. Because it's the nature of humans. We are competitive apes. We would always like to have a competitive advantage over other groups. Within a nation, you have got laws to restrain yourself. But between nations, it's all military power. We might evolve into something different. But as on date, this is the sad fact of mankind. And the fourth generation is adaptive learning. Okay, data, all about data. So and then the military robots, which the Vice Chancellor had, briefly mentioned about. Many of them exist today, and some of them are used in the army, by the army as we speak. So here you are. Your first two generations were process-driven. Your next two, which are currently, machine learning and artificial intelligence, both are data-driven. So if you do not have data, you do not have robots or intelligent robots, because that's where you're evolving. And from there, the obvious question is, where is the data? So in this slide onwards, I think I will slowly challenge your thinking. I will make you aware of things which are key to robots, which you might not learn in your daily, education. Where is the data? Data is largely in three places. In the social media networks that a lot of you must be texting among yourselves as we speak. Then in the operating systems, you see, this Android, Windows, iOS, Linux, Chrome, what have you. And the rest of it is mostly in the clouds. Amazon, Microsoft, Alibaba, Google, IBM, and some others. Okay, this is where the data exists. And where is the control? The control finally exists in the chips. No high-end processors, no robotics. So data and chips are two places which India uses a lot, but it does not produce or manufacture. So when you get into robotics, you always need to keep this at the back of your mind. You're creating intelligent machines. You're planning to put artificial intelligence into machines, which might not be under your control because you do not control the data, neither do you have control of the chips. So from there, I, finish on robotics and get you into a slightly more, larger picture of the world. This gentleman is Henry Kissinger. Not many of you might have heard of him, but he was the Secretary of State in the Nixon administration. There was a gentleman called Nixon who was the president, who finally had to resign because of the Watergate scandal. Okay, so this Henry Kissinger is a very smart gentleman, and he is the architect of the present global order. And for you to study engineering without understanding how the world functions is like going through life with blindfolds on. So Henry Kissinger has said, it's not a matter of what is true that counts, but a matter of what is perceived to be true. This has very, very interesting phenomena, because the truth actually does not matter. It is what people believe to be the truth which matters. Okay, think over it. And now I give you a fast forward lesson in international relations and strategy and global this to make you understand. So 1945 was a year when the Second World War was coming to an end. it had still not ended. When the victorious Allied powers, they knew they were going to win the war, they got together in a place called Bretton Woods in the US to plan the future of mankind. And in Bretton Woods, they decided that the US dollar will be the reserve currency. Till the time, the reserve currency of the world was British pounds. Britain was the global superpower at that time, and India was a dominion of a colony of the British. We participated in this Bretton Woods agreement, get together by 3 bureaucrats, 1 British and 2 Indian. Excuse me. So what it basically meant was the gold of all most of the world, because the rest of the Europe was bust. It had got bankrupt fighting the war, and they owed huge amounts of money to the United States. So they agreed that they will ship all that gold into the United States, and based on that holding of gold, the United States is allowed to print dollars. Okay, it was a percentage. Now, fast forward into 1971, the United States went bust fighting the Vietnam War. Wars are expensive businesses. So our friend Henry Kissinger took a flight, landed up in Saudi Arabia, and cut a deal with the House of Saud. The House of Saud is a ruling clan, the ruling this of Saudi Arabia. What was the deal? He said the US military will guarantee that the House of Saud will continue to rule Saudi Arabia, provided OPEC, an organization of petrol-producing nations, which had newly been formed at that time, only sells their oil in US dollars. So once that agreement was cut, the United States unilaterally abandoned the Bretton Woods Agreement and started printing dollars, fiat dollars. The rest of the world had to work very hard, export things what the United States needs, and earn dollars. The United States could just print dollars. So today, if you look at our engineering educational system, most of you will aspire to go abroad or maybe work in some big name company, mostly Western, mostly US. So the ability to print dollars gives United States extraordinary power. They then can support a military which is with a budget 10 times the next 10 nations. Okay, the next 10 nations, majority of whom are US allies, do not have the budget what the US military has. So the world is controlled by 2 mechanisms. The fiat dollar. A fiat dollar means a paper currency which is not backed by anything. And the US military, which will enforce this particular order. Gulf War II, just to take you slightly onto the side because it's relevant. Saddam Hussein had not listened to my lecture, and after the Gulf War I, he decided to sell oil in euros. The euros appreciated, and Saddam Hussein got a windfall gain. Second, he got the windfall gain. Certain other nations like Venezuela and Iran said, hey, let us also start selling oil in euros. So the United States immediately realized the danger because it would unravel the world order which they had created, and they then decided to remove Saddam Hussein. So here again, as Henry Kissinger says, control oil and you control nations, control food and you control people. At that time, there was nothing called data. Today, if you have data of all people all over the world, you can control not only oil, you can control the food supply, you can also control the electoral and political process in other nations. So now I introduce another small term for you to grasp what I'm now trying to make you understand. This is something called the global commons. The global commons was a term which was first articulated by American Admiral Alfred Thayer Mahan. Mahan, 100 years back, studied the map and realized that the British control of the world is because they control the choke points in the sea lanes of communication. It is not that the British actually studied the global map and decided to control the choke points, but over the period of 200 years in which they dominated the globe, they created that global empire, they slowly went on to control the choke points. I will now try to make you understand this in a slightly different manner. There you are. This is the map, which shows the millions of barrels of oil which flow. You might think, what has it got to do with robotics? It's got a lot to do with robotics, believe you me. Be patient. So, these millions of barrels of oil, this was a map of 2014, shows there are two particular points. One is the Strait of Malacca and the Strait of Hormuz. That is 17 million and 15.2 million barrels in 2014. And then you will realize the rest of the sea lanes where the choke points, the straits are there, they are comparatively much smaller. And you see India sitting there right at the center, dominating these two straits, the Strait of Hormuz and Strait of Malacca. And there you are. Now, to make you understand this and why the world is happening, why we are having tensions on the border with China, and why that particular map and the comments are important, I take you down to the South China Sea and the trading routes of China. You will see the entire trade of China happens via the South China Sea through this Malacca Strait. That Sunda, Lombok, etc. are just minor straits wherein ore from Australia reaches China. So for China to survive, because the entire economy is dependent on controlling that Malacca Strait. Okay, anyone who dominates that Malacca Strait can choke China and bring it to heel. And that is the reason you will realize to break out of this, and this Malacca, the Malacca Strait is where the Singapore and the US Navy, the most powerful force in the world, has got an ability to choke it. And that is the reason why China is building the CPEC and the BRI to break out of this stranglehold. And that is the reason that we are having tensions on the Ladakh border. Okay, Leh Ladakh is a place where if the CPEC is cutting across through Pakistan-occupied Kashmir into Pakistan to bypass this Malacca Strait into the Arabian Sea, that's the reason we are having tensions. So there you are. Barry Pawson, MIT professor, was the first one to say, command of the commons is the key enabler of US global power position. So what is the commons? What is the commons? There you are. It's a space in the international system over which states do not exercise the normal prerogatives of sovereignty, and to which norms provide for universal access for economic, political, scientific, cultural, and sometimes military purposes. So basically, these are systems where nations do not exercise sovereignty. The high seas, the air, Antarctica, space, these are the commons. Now, to make you understand the importance of these domains, in 2014, when I dug out the figures, the world trade used to be US dollar 18 trillion. Sea, 70% by value and 80% by volume. Air, 20% by value and 1% by volume, mostly smartphones, okay? And land, 10% by value and 19% by volume. And then here, cyberspace. In 2014, the daily transactions via SWIFT was US dollar 10 trillion per day. This would have multiplied multiple times in 2021. Now, do you understand the significance of cyberspace? And when India says we are going into 100% digital economy, do we actually control this domain? Do we have a privacy law? Do we have data localization? Do we have appliances to even enforce the law? So to make you understand, fully 97% of India's internet traffic goes via Mumbai. Okay, the rest of it is only 3%. So if anyone cuts any of those, cables or the landing station, our digital economy is finished. You will slowly stop hearing what I talk. So there you come to cyberspace, okay, and more closer to robotics and artificial intelligence. So the global critical infrastructures, anything to do with modernity, everything, in fact, is controlled via ICT, cyberspace, where the data exists. This can be then told as the nervous system of a modern nation. So information communication technologies are like the nervous systems of modern nation. If you can bring that, if you can control that nervous system, you can control the nation. And their activity in the 21st century is all about cyberspace. The US military, for example, is spending more money on cyber security than their entire nuclear weapons budget. And the Chinese have openly declared their intentions to concentrate on cyberspace and information warfare. So that's a domain which is highly contested. And there, okay. Arthur Zabriskie is the first, vice admiral who recognized this in 2004 and said the importance of cyberspace. He said it would be equivalent to the sea lanes of communication. It would be a commons like the sea. Anyone who dominates cyberspace will control the globe, okay, in the information age. So characteristics of cyberspace, broadly physical and information layer. People do say there are cognitive layer, but I have just restricted myself to the information layer because the cognitive layer cannot be quantified. It's a human-made domain, subject to quick and constant reorganization. It's also a venue for military activity where the money is spent. Barriers to entry are low. Any smart kid with a laptop can become a player. You can get your Arduino boards, and if you can code and imagine things, you can create magic. You're relevant. Because to create a navy, it takes about 100 years. To create an air force, you need humongous amount of money for the navy also, and for an army, you need so much of people. But in cyberspace, the smart kid, maybe one among you can make a difference. So what are the realities of today? This is a photograph which I've taken out of the Snowden revelations. It shows a Cisco router which is being opened up by the American NSA. And they are implanting software and hardware implants to beat the air gap before it is being shipped out. So what does it mean? It shows the underlying architecture on which you're going to create your robotics. How do you trust them? Are the chips yours? Is the data for artificial intelligence under your control? Can people manipulate them? There is the US, again, part of the Snowden revelations. They show the years in which all these iconic companies have decided to join the US program. So it is military control, imperialism, controlling of the globe. There are people who say that it is the multinational companies which are, doing what it is. But if you look at Indian history, just 75 years back, we just got our independence. And how did we get taken over? By a corporate company called the East India Company, who exploited our schisms very intelligently and slowly started ruling India. So robotics important. But what are the underlying mechanisms of robotics? There is China. China was suspicious of anything to do with the West because of its history, unlike us, which we were given freedom by the British, and a group of lawyers inherited our freedom. In China, no, the Communist Party, the People's Liberation Army had to grab power, and because of which they were suspicious, and they created a great firewall of China, because of which they could create giant corporations like Alibaba, Tencent, Sinacor, etc., which we do not have. We only have Infosys, TCS, etc., which are widely known as cyber coolies. We work for others without understanding the whole purpose behind the game. So, along with the BRI, the Chinese are also creating digital Silk Roads, where they are ensuring that ICT is going into other nations, including India, hugely penetrated by American multinationals. Look at that map. ICT everywhere. The building blocks of robotics. Okay, so the only two major people who are fighting it out are China and the US. Rest all of us are, we have not even understood the domain. So China, these are the things which they have done. I am rushing it through so that, because I will send this presentation to Dr. Rohini, if you people need it, because I have to give you adequate time to question me. So I'm just rushing it through it, but I think you can read this. You can also, if you're smart enough, take a quick, screenshot, then go through it. Okay. So there is the digital Silk Road. What are the things which are going to be part of the digital Silk Road? Security information system, digital free trade zones, e-governance, smart cities, telecom, 5G network technology, fiber optics and cables, smart cities. Robotics are not overtly mentioned, but finally all of that is going to lead to robos. Okay. India, this issue. Effective and entrenched software industry catering to the West and their representative industry bodies. Our privacy law, in spite of being a fundamental right, has still not happened. Make in India, Startup India, and now Atmanirbhar Bharat, still not taken off fully. Why? Because people are ensuring that our discourse is fully not appreciated by the large population of India. Because this is not for the Aam Aadmi. You are engineering students. Did you know all this before my lecture? If you were not aware, how could the Aam Aadmi on the street ever understand this fight? So present status, heavily dependent on solutions by foreign nations, vulnerable from adversarial state-sponsored attacks. No privacy law, Aadhaar, all those biometrics, everything which is so important to military robotics, all not under our control. Okay, basically it is all controlled by software and hardware, which is Western and Chinese in origin. Dangerous. How do you do robotics? Will that robot remain under your control? So strategic deception. How? Free flow of data was linked to freedom of expression and ideas. There are people who have told, you mean to say that we need to create firewalls like US, we need to localize data like North Korea and Russia? No. All Western nations also very intelligently, without overtly expressing it, localize their data. I interacted with a Singapore gentleman, asked them, do you have a data localization policy? He said, no, we don't have a data localization policy or a law. I said, okay, that means your entire Singapore financial services, you allow the data to flow freely? He says, no, we don't allow that also. We ensure the data is there, but we don't have a policy, declared policy or a law. That's a very small city of intelligent people who has done it. But a continental sized nation like India, unless there is a law, who will do that? So there you are. These are certain conclusions about cyberspace and artificial intelligence. There you are. Some of our biggest threats to our national security today. Diverse population divided into castes, ethnicities, religions, languages, what have you. If all this data flows outside, can each and every one of you be profiled? Can it be used to spread fake news, which is catering to your particular profile, to expand schisms and upset India from internally? Think about it. So there you have Yuval Noah Harari. When I initially had written this, people were still not this, but Yuval Noah Harari last year came on the World Economic Forum and said, when you have enough data, you don't need to send soldiers in to control a country. You can control them remotely. Even if you create indigenous robbers, if you don't have the chips and if you don't control the data flows, who will they listen to? So the supreme award of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting. Okay, this Sun Tzu is a very famous sage of 3,000 years back who's created all these things. His principles are universal. Times have changed. But isn't that the way? Why do you need to actually invade into India to take control of India again? You just need to have the data, right? So there it comes. Information is the oil of 21st century. Analytics is the combustion engine. We have the largest trained manpower right here in India. But we are almost, the vast majority are working for foreign companies. Most of you would be aspiring to join those foreign companies. I have no quarrel with that. Why shouldn't you? But think. Okay, so I have just taken the companies, the richest companies in the world in 2008 and 2018. You see the color code. Okay, blue is ICT. So in 2008, it was oil. Okay, only Microsoft and China Mobile was in ICT. You look at 2018, most of it looks like ICT. Things have changed. Okay, Saudi Aramco in 2019 has come up, but I think other $1 trillion tech companies have gone up. All of them, Apple, Microsoft, Alphabet, Amazon, all of them are into robotics. They're all based on data. All your research, including my speech as on date, is on a Western platform. They are listening in, and their AI algorithms are taking note of what we speak. If it is relevant, they will act on it. So what's the fight all about? Please do ignore the map the way it is, because I've just taken the map is not correct of India. Okay, there. But that is what, this is a PwC map, which I've just taken and put out there. It shows per capita, we are in the red. Okay. South Asia is in the red, including India, which is akin to sub-Saharan Africa. I'm not saying we might be as poor as sub-Saharan Africa, but we are there. China has pulled itself into the middle income. The West is in the green. Okay, that is above $50,000. Okay, they are all, we might say they are all collapsing, but they are rich. The population is rich. And this from PwC again. They're predicting 2050. We still somewhere are in the red, a color which we might not want to be. The West, as per them, are still going to be in the green. Okay, China is still in the middle income. That's their prediction. So what's the challenge all about? This is the global wealth distribution, percentages. China, poverty almost wiped out. India, there is a large percentage of the population, right, hovering below and on the poverty line. Most of us are towards the right. And remember this, you are today having a taxpayer subsidized education in the engineering college. You are part of the privileged few who are getting this opportunity. Make good. Think of the vast majority of Indians who don't get this opportunity. So where are our laws and policies, etc., getting buried in? That's because of lobbying. Okay. If you look at everything, these companies taken together are bigger than by multiples of India's GDP. And India is one of the largest producers of data, very rich data for them. They are ensuring that money pours in to ensure that our government doesn't, the legislators don't create the laws which will actually protect and look after India's interests. Privacy is the most used word. Okay. Why? Because it's a fundamental right. What is a nation which cannot even protect your fundamental right? Other fundamental rights are right to property, right to life, things like that. Privacy is also one of the fundamental rights now. Very important. Lobbying. Okay, again, I have shown you this. Now, what is our challenge? This is our population. Okay, if you look at our population, how it is growing, how it is going to grow. our working age population, okay, we have got the largest youth bulge in human history. Young people of your this, people below you, and people slightly above you. They are the largest chunk of our population. And with robotics coming in, the traditional jobs are not going to be there. Okay, a lot of jobs are going to get automated. I'm not saying that we should not get into robotics. We definitely need to get into robotics, but we have to become a manufacturing base. There is no jobs for this young people. Okay, this is unemployment rates rising, and after COVID, this would have risen much more. And this is a period of demographic dividend, which they say, 2018 to 2055. We've already lost 3 years. These are the times when people rapidly grow. Okay, if you don't grow, then there will be instability, internal instability. You see the farmer agitation, you see a lot of agitation which is happening all over. That's because of youngsters not having enough jobs. If you are on a job, do you have time to go and stand for that agitation? So I come to the end of my presentation. You might think, can we do this? 60 years back, at the end of the Second World War, the Japanese were known for shoddy technologies. No one today is saying Japan is technologically shoddy. 30 years back, okay, I remember Chinese were considered slightly behind India, just 30 years back. No one says that India, the Chinese are technologically backward today. India is better placed with world-class talent. The only thing lacking is the strategy. Now, what is a strategy is a vast topic. I'm open to discussions. I've come to my end of my presentation and the keynote speech. I'm open to questions. I'm also available on this email ID, and that's my number. Please do reach out to me, maybe on Signal or whatever, and I'll try and take on questions. I now exit this, and I'm open to questions. I hope you have benefited out of that presentation. Done. Back into. I stop. Okay. How do I stop presenting? Okay. Stop presenting. I press that. I hope it made sense. I'm open to questions. Can you still see me? Professor Rohini. So I'm open for any questions if people do have.
I guess participants had questions they had written in a chat box. I lost it as I lost my connection. So if there are any questions, surely we will forward it to you, and we'll ask you to rejoin if time permits in between. Otherwise, we'll email you. You please mind to.
Okay, do that. I can only see Anis Fatima who has said, thank you for your wonderful presentation. Thank you, Anis. Yes, I hope you. Fair enough.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you.
So I have taken out some more time to watch a little bit of your starting of your workshop before I quit. So I've got another 45 minutes. I look forward to participating and seeing what is in the workshop.
Yeah, sure, sir. You're most welcome. Your participation is really important for us. Thank you so much. And now I would like to introduce the resource person of the workshop, who is associated with the Finland Labs, New Delhi. Let me brief about the Finland Labs first. Finland Lab, it is a unit of River Technology Private Limited. It is India's leading live and interactive training provider company. It is organizing various career-oriented training programs and projects at selective engineering management colleges, universities in India, like IIT Madras, IIT Bombay, IIT Delhi, IIT Guwahati, IIT Roorkee, etc. It's my pleasure to introduce the resource person of the workshop, Umang Kejriwal, who is associated with the Finland Labs. Umang Kejriwal, sir, he has an experience in the field of robotics and embedded system, Android app development, web development, Python, data science, machine learning, artificial intelligence, deep learning, and Internet of Things. And he has the experience more than 7 years. He has delivered trainings for Finland Labs, distinguished, Diginic Tech Lab, Harbor Technologies, Technospaces, Global Solutions, Redtron Technologies, Aptronics Technologies, Robotic Labs, and many more. He has delivered more than 80 faculty development programs in association with E and ICT, IIT Roorkee, IIT Guwahati in different engineering colleges. He has delivered faculty development program in association with IBM India Private Limited in different engineering colleges. He has delivered more than 250 workshops, 200 trainings on robotics, IoT, Arduino, web development, data science, machine learning, Python, Android app development, pan-India. So he has handled various projects which include the robotics, embedded system, IoT, using AVR, Arduino, Node MCU, and Raspberry Pi. So to list a few, and he has handled projects which are related to machine learning, AI, and deep learning. And he has been associated with many of the live projects with the Finland Lab. And to list a few of colleges where he has delivered the workshops and received a great response would be IIT Roorkee, SIRT Bhopal, IIT Patna, IIT Gandhinagar, IIT Delhi, IIT Bombay, Bangalore University, Chaitanya Bharati Institute of Technology, Hyderabad, Indraprastha Engineering College, Ghaziabad, Banasari Vidyapeeth University, Jaipur. So these are a few, to list few of them. There are many such colleges. If I keep on reading, I guess I may need more than 10 minutes just to list them out. So it was just a brief introduction of today's resource person who will be taking the hands-on sessions from now onwards. So on behalf of the university and on behalf of the Computer Science Department and organizers, I wholeheartedly welcome today's resource person, Umang Kejriwal, who is with us here now. So welcome, Umang sir.
Okay, thank you so much, ma'am.
Yeah.
So first of all, good morning, everyone. Good morning, all the dignitaries present here. So first of all, I want to thank all of you and this college for giving me this opportunity to deliver this workshop on robotics on the behalf of Finland Labs. So I'm very pleased to deliver this workshop. So as ma'am already introduced about myself, so I'll not spend my time in introducing myself. So I'll straight away start the workshop. So ma'am, can we start the workshop now?
Yeah, sure, sir. Before we start the workshop, there are a few of the instructions that I would like to give.
Yeah, ma'am.
If you allow.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, before we begin the brainstorming sessions of Umang sir, few instructions to the participants. Attendance for each session will be downloaded at any random time during the session. Attendance to all the sessions is compulsory. Only 100% attendance will be considered for certificate. If participants have any question box of Google Meet, we will bring them during or at the end of the presentation, depending on the situation. And for hands-on, please be ready with your laptop installed with the prerequisite software that we have shared with you through the email. And please take your electronic components ready so that you can easily carry on the hands-on. So these are a few of the instructions to the participants. And now I'm handing over to the Umang sir. Sir, you can start now.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you. Okay, so participants, so right now, before going for the hands-on session, right now I'm just going to give you overview